Well, welcome to Sawyer Paddles and Oars Live. This is our third edition of these live feeds, and my name is Zach Kaufman with Sawyer, and we've been kind of reaching out to different parts of the community in our network. And today we're fortunate to talk with Mollie and Kaylin with the Montana Relief Guide Fund, and I will let them introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of just kind of give an idea of what we're going to discuss. And please, like always, if you have any questions, please fire those questions in the comments and let us know. We do have folks monitoring that, and we'll make sure we get to all your questions during this time. So ladies, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh boy. Well, goody. Well, I'm Mollie Simpkins. I live in Bozeman, and I work at Sweetwater Fly Shop in Livingston, doing outreach and events and do the outfitting in the summer, which has come to a halt. When this all hit, my boss, Dan Jagan of Sweetwater, was looking to help guides, kind of bridge the gap during unemployment, and said he wanted to start a fund. So started working on that immediately, called Kelly, who you'll speak with shortly, about helping, because she's a guide in Montana, has been for many years, and is just an all-around go-getter. So we started working on this, and then the CARES Act passed, thankfully, which allows independent contractors to file for unemployment benefits, and Montana adopted, I believe almost every state did, thankfully. So because independent contractors and gig workers and the self-employed were able to benefit from unemployment benefits, we didn't feel it was a right time to ask for money. But we could serve as maybe a portal or a place where they could all come to find information to kind of navigate these new waters. I mean, they've never had to file for unemployment or a loan or a grant or anything like that. So out of that, the Guide Relief Fund turned into the Guide Relief Program. And, we've just been trying to help however we can. We are certainly no experts. We say that right off the bat. We're just, just a couple of broads who work in the fly fishing industry. But, this is important. They are the backbone of our industry in Montana. And we feel we have to do whatever we can to kind of help them get through this.
Gotcha.
It was born.
Yeah. And Kaylin?
Kinsley's over in Missoula, and she can speak to actually, true experience being a guide in Montana and going through this.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, been based out of Missoula since 2008, and I guide not only in Montana but also for Steelhead in Washington State. And when all of this was happening, I not only wanted to be proactive for myself, and my boyfriend and I were both guides in such an uncertain time. It was just kind of serendipitous that Mollie and I connected, and I felt like it was a great opportunity for me to not only help myself, but also we could build a resource center together to help provide, all the other guides. As of 2019, there were over 1,600 licensed guides in the state of Montana. And, the outdoor recreation industry in Montana is the second largest economic driver. So guides are a huge component. And the fly fishing industry, from shops to shuttle drivers, are hugely impacted by this.
Everything that supports it.
Exactly. It was, we're a cog in the wheel, but we just wanted to do our part. So it was great to provide kind of the perspective from an actual guide going through these troubles.
Exactly. Well, of course, and that is like one of the reasons that we really wanted to talk to you guys, is because the situation is so fluid. I mean, ever since, from when we've set this up to today, things have changed. And it's just that's kind of the life we all live in now, is that everything is changing rapidly, no matter if you're a guide in Montana or a shop in Oregon. There's just all these changes constantly. And all of the folks that I talk with is like, it's very taxing mentally like there's just so many challenges in your day constantly that just keep popping up. And so, hopefully we can give the guides some things that can, help them kind of navigate through that. So I would love to just kind of get just kind of an overview as far as what are the conditions in Montana, and then just kind of maybe lay out there for folks as far as what the gig worker kind of unemployment piece is, that what you found out as you noticed it just changed recently, and kind of talk to folks about that a little bit. And then what you're really just kind of want, like you guys do kind of have your finger on the pulse of guides in Montana just because of what you've set up. And, maybe some guides you're hearing from and other guides they're like under a rock. You haven't heard a thing. And, and there's probably a lot of that where guides are just kind of waiting for things to happen. And that's the thing. Everybody's waiting for something to happen. Like everybody's waiting to see, like, is this still going to happen? Am I still going to have this kind of job? Or do I need to start applying to work at the grocery store because they're buried, and so there's all those kind of uncertainties going on. And then I really think if we could spend some time about just kind of talking about guide trips in general, like not only in Montana, but guide trips all around, as far as like a way to keep promoting this campaign of postpone and don't cancel. And I can share some things as what I've kind of gathered from some of the outfitting on the whitewater side of things that is kind of, that's kind of all over the map. Outfitters all have a different approach to those things. And so, that's kind of one thing I think we could kind of touch on. I'm sure every state and anybody watching would love any kind of things that you've discovered along the way as far as dealing with your local and state government officials, because that, as we all know, is kind of like, yes, they say one thing on television, but the trickle effect of how it actually gets out to the folks in the real community is really something else. And so we could definitely talk about that a little bit. And then just kind of what do you guys see as the vision for salvaging the season? I'm hearing this more and more and more, as like salvaging the season. And there's people that are just ready to fight, and they're like, yep, I'm going to salvage my season. As soon as they're allowing it, I'm going to get as much done as I can. And I'll work back-to-back trips as many days possible. And I'll bring on more guides if I have to. And then there's other folks that are just kind of like going, wait a minute, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to cut my losses, and I'm just not even going to open my doors. So, full spectrum from there. And then I think if we have time, also just kind of how is your state, like tourism board, getting involved, or how can they? Because basically this is really something that is tourism for Montana. Guides and outfitting is really something that's tourism for Oregon. And so, like, as we look at the salvage of the season, those folks should be big players because they have budgets and they have skin in the game. And so, like, that's kind of like my thought process is from when I was guiding all the time. That's basically, it was like, if I could actually talk to the folks in Travel Oregon, and if I could talk to the folks in Southern Oregon Traveling Bureau, would be like, hey, I want to be highlighted there. And so I'm sure that there's discussions down the road that can really happen to kind of, if we do see this turnaround, how does it go? So just to give you a little idea of where we're at on the manufacturing side, obviously guides are a huge network of our business, and we support a lot of guides. A lot of guides use our Oars primarily, and so we're surfing this other wave. Like, same thing. It's like, if it's going to turn on, where's it going to happen? And if it turns on in certain areas, are we going to be ready to salvage our season? Where, like, just like the guide is trying to realize, like, well, maybe I should call that buddy of mine that used to guide and see if this really turns on, I put an extra 2 boats on the water so I can make sure I get all these people on the water as much as possible, and just thinking through things like that. But, like, this is the down the road contingency plan that you don't even know is going to happen. And of course it changes constantly all the time. So there's just a few things that we could talk about, but maybe let's just start off with what you had just found out in the
Literally the conversation that you all heard with the
the conversation that we
office.
heard, but the viewers did not.
I mean,
Good news.
literally things are changing constantly. So yesterday, and anybody who's tried to apply for unemployment as an independent contractor or just anyone, and not just in Montana, everywhere, it's just a challenge. And it's hard to tell people who are filing for unemployment to be patient. I mean, gosh, they're so overwhelmed, not just in Montana, but everywhere. And one of the challenges has been in all these unemployment systems is they're not set up for independent contractors. They're set up for people who have jobs where their taxes get taken out and they have, fight the whole thing. Contractors, right? They're not set up for it. So all these weeks they've been trying to have their IT departments, be able to do this. And just yesterday, a new site went up, which apparently is working for independent contractors here in Montana. So we put that on the website, the new website to go to. And if you have been denied under the regular system, are encouraged to go to the new website and apply. If you are an independent contractor, self-employed gig worker, period. So this is now set up.
And that's a state of Montana website that helps them.
Yeah, Montana Department of Labor.
It's a new program called the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. It is specifically for that community, the community of independent contractors or gig workers or the self-employed. It is specifically for them. So if you are a regular employee like myself and I went and filed unemployment on the regular site, I am not to go to the PUA site because I'm not an independent contractor. So, I'll say it again. There's just one little nuance that you heard me on the phone trying to figure it out, right? So, sure, if you've been denied, you can go to the PUA site and file. But can you physically, are you going to be accepted? We don't know. So if you are an independent contractor who is watching this in the state of Montana and you have been denied, go to the new site and try to apply. That's what we're trying to figure out. Can you do it?
Right.
We know you can, but can you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know from even on the business side of things, like the PPP program, the payroll protection program is like, they basically want the banks they want you to deal with the bank you've been dealing with, right?
Yes.
But then all the banks are like, no. We're not filling out forms. You need to go to this website and go to this portal and basically and go through this automated process. And then once it gets you to one point, then we'll let you on. And then, and then they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, it's out of money, so we locked it up. So
well, and that's another part you heard. I mean, it can jump around every topic. So, I guess he said they're waiting for the House to approve the new bill. Anyway, there's like $350 billion that's about to be approved to PPP and the EIDL again, but they have to wait for the House to approve it, and then is there going to be another date to apply? That's kind of, we'll probably know that by the end of the day.
Yeah, and it's almost like our the federal government is bringing BandAids to triage.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like,
a great analogy.
How can you actually get all the supplies to the front line of the triage? Because that's what really needs to happen. And when you have millions and millions of people trying to get
in the front line of the triage, it's just, it's frustrating. And the people at the other end of the phone line are frustrated as well. I've heard some horror stories.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, be nice to the unemployment folks. They're getting.
And everybody that's going through this really needs to be patient, be kind, and be safe. Like you can't be in a hurry for anything. It's like in this state, just going to the bank. It's like everybody is going through drive-ups, right? Well, banks haven't been putting improvements into drive-ups before this happened. So some banks you go to, there isn't even a drive up. There's like a lane that looks like the drive up. Then you drive around there, it's a concrete wall and an ATM. And they're like, and there's like huge banks that basically have drive-throughs that have underground drive-throughs. So you can't go through it with a vehicle with a rocket box on the top.
Oh, no, you cannot. No, you'll hear that awful sound.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's like you go to the bank and it's like, okay, our bank that we use basically started closing earlier, which I don't understand why, but they started closing at 4 instead of 5. And you need to make sure that if you're not in line by 3, you're not going to the bank that day. You know, it's not like where if you get in the door, they let you finish your business and they lock the door and let everybody in the building keep going. I think if you're so many cars back in the drive-thru, they just get to a certain point and they just shut the window and then
that's right.
The rest of you can drive away.
Thanks for banking with us.
Exactly. So
I mean, I don't know if you wanted to show that portion. Do you want to show that portion of the website where the address is?
Yes. Shiska could pop up the contact info.
That way they get a little idea of, so on the resources unemployment page, there's the website.
And that's the newest.
Yes, so this was just I literally just updated this. So
hot off the press.
That the red paragraph has the new website in it. So it totally looks different. It's pretty self-explanatory. So if you are if you're an independent contractor, a guide, and again, you have applied and been denied, this is where you're going to want to come back to. This is very new. See where it says Pandemic Unemployment Assistant. It's a new website just for independent contractors, and you can go reapply. And hopefully, I've heard it's been more successful than the other one, so that's the good news.
It absolutely has. One thing that, though, if you go to check your application status, if you've applied post April, I believe, was it 15th? Again, it's so fluid, I can't remember the date.
I know, it's
at one point the system for some of those that had applied, they were actually kicked out, we were informed, through tester's office during our first meeting with them. And so for those that are trying to go in and reapply, or check on their status of their reapplication, it may not show up. And this was an update that we got. I actually spoke to the unemployment office on the phone yesterday. So your claim may not show on the website because now the IT department needs to go into the backside and input all of the information additionally. And to our knowledge, what we were told yesterday, it could take about 1 to 2 weeks. So the number on the new site, the PUA site, does link you to someone. There's a 50% chance they will be unable to help you because they don't have the information that was claimed before the site was established. So then you can try emailing. On that site, there's the PUA email, or you can really play roulette and try to go onto
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah, seriously, but it's understandable. I mean, the system is so inundated. So so the number's on the bottom there, and then as well as the new email address, and then on our website, under the unemployment, that number is the same. Okay, same as the website.
Yep.
There's also another email that we can share with you guys, and the phone number, there it is. It's the 2545, and that takes you to the unemployment center. But just keep in mind, it's bogged down. I mean, it's taking, I would say, on average 50 tries to get into the queue, and I would say average wait time is probably an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah, you start with your coffee, Make sure you have everything ready to make breakfast. Make sure
Exactly.
you have lunch ready to be made.
Yes.
And hopefully you get in and get some sort of answers before you start your cocktail hour.
One of the things
Give yourself
that,
a reward. You have to have a reward set
that's
up.
right. Treat yourself. Sorry, little Parks and
Absolutely.
Rec. One of
So
the
you were
things
saying,
Chester's office did say to me in an email. Let me see if I can. This was literally just a little while ago, and it's still really confusing. So he said if someone had set up an account on the old system, the DLI system, and they've tried to apply, they may actually get a phone call from the DLI to say, yes, you can apply on PAUA. You are eligible to receive benefits on the PUA site. So some people may receive a phone call saying, hey, go to PUA and apply.
yeah, well,
They just do it. You have nothing to lose.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And just be
absolutely.
patient and, keep on it. I mean, if you try calling one day and you can't get through, or you send an email one day, just keep following up. I know I don't mean to inundate the system even more, but it is very important that, you do the best to take care of yourself and try to get your
Stay
claim.
persistent.
Yeah, exactly. But be patient too, and be nice
Yeah.
to those folks.
Be very patient, very kind, and very persistent.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. You have to walk that fine line between persistence and annoyance.
It's hard. I mean, even those of us who are working, we're all frustrated. So the fact that this is just the top of it, I can't even imagine how terribly frustrating it is when you haven't been working for over a month and you have no prospects and your income is down to zero and you're trying to pay your bills and your mortgage and nothing is moving as anybody would like it to. So, but they're trying. They really are.
Yep. And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's hopefully, that program gets sorted out in Montana. I don't know. I mean, I've talked to guide outfits around Oregon, but it's a little different. It's a little different culture. So there's not as many, independent guides. Most of them are, a lot of them that we deal with regularly are on the raft guide side of things. And those companies have been able to basically apply for PPP and try and make that part happen. But also those are the folks that, we're hearing this wide spectrum of, I'm going to do anything possible to make it happen, to some of these outfitters that, like we were talking the other day, that there's whitewater outfitters that are trying to figure out how do they turn a trip from a raft trip into an inflatable kayak trip, just so that people can have their own craft and they can have this distance. And like, as you were saying, like folks in Montana, you can't really have that distance in a drift boat with fish.
No,
And that's
it's
really,
not
I
really
mean,
possible.
Yeah, from Montana's perspective, I mean, don't get us wrong, there are still employee guides, and we are more than happy to help them as well. This isn't just, discriminatory just for independent contractors, but I would say the majority, I can't necessarily quantify the percentage of guides in Montana that are independent contractors, but I would say it's the overwhelming majority of us guides here. And to further that point of, getting in a boat with someone, that's kind of the other catch-22 is a lot of our guiding, the majority of our guiding here in Montana is done via a boat, especially like from the Missoula area. We just have so much water and it's best utilized from a boat. I mean, that's the best way to maximize clients' time on the water. So trying to also navigate that is another
and I think that's one of those things that it's going to have to be tackled state by state.
Yeah.
Because it's different trying to put regulations on how a raft trip can operate versus putting regulations on, how can a fishing trip operate and what does that really look like? And,
Foam,
So
which is an outfitting organization here in Montana, literally just came out with their guidelines. They worked with the governor's office and other offices to come up with guidelines on how to do this as safely as possible. And
right.
we can link that there. You can go to their Facebook page, sign up for their emails. They're very specific. And I know there's probably going to be some outfitters who are going to be like, we're ready to go right now. Conversely, I don't see our shop or business opening anytime soon because my boss wants to make very sure that there's absolutely no possibility of any kind of contamination or anything. So there's
Right. And it's even
the
further than
gamut.
that, because it's not like just the operation, but it's like, how do people get there? How do they,
Oh,
I mean, it's like, the whole travel thing is like, you can't really just say, okay, we have these guidelines put in place in Montana, but not everybody that you take fishing is in Montana, and a whole lot of them are
no.
not in Montana. So then how do you really allow, this whole state to state, that's the big kicker. Is
Therein
like,
lies the rub. And they do talk about that. They talk about if you're coming from another state, you need to quarantine 14 days before you got here, right? So if you
right.
for 14 days, then you can come to Montana and we'll let you fish, or you have to come and so it's
Right.
be interesting to
Yeah.
see how everything shakes out because
It
we're
will.
opening
Yeah. I mean,
on Monday.
Yep.
Our state.
you guys, Montana is opening back up on Monday
Well,
with
it's a
some
phase
sort of
one.
some
Yes.
sort of limited.
Oh, lots of
Right.
limits.
Right.
But yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, but so like that. See, that's the thing. Is like, I think in phase one there isn't out of state travel allowed unless there's a 14-day quarantine, which that means they had to start quarantining. They had to start quarantining 9 days ago.
Well, they should have been quarantined by now already, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, so how do I mean, what is your proof that you are?
Well,
already
they
quarantined,
actually have the guys at Foam have a thing. You have to sign a piece of paper saying I have self-quarantined.
I have self-quarantines. Yes. So
Or something to that effect. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the buddy system. So yeah,
It's the honor system. That's right.
And the three guys that are coming with me have all self-quarantined too, because we coordinated this 14 days before we got here.
And another layer too. Yeah, another layer too of difficulty. They just keep stacking up like a cake. But another layer now we're facing is, I mean, for us here in Missoula, I can't speak to Bozeman, but we are definitely on the cusp of runoff if it hasn't already begun. So for us being based, on all freestones, that's going to be difficult. So even if you wanted to guide, maybe the river is not in shape.
The river is not cooperating.
Or, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's almost kind of like the soft opening, the phase one part maybe allows the outfitter to start getting some hope to actually start booking some trips and
for
start
May,
figuring out
June,
how that's going to
July.
happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like, everybody who guides in Montana already knows that it's a sticky wicket in in late April, that you don't know what the river is going to be like. But yeah, everybody is doing exactly that. How do I salvage my season? What am I going to be able to salvage, and what's it going to look like when I get there? And then there's talk in Oregon that I don't know if it's going through any formal channels, but I've heard this from a few guides, that there are small guides, like independent guides, that are like, hey, I will just take one angler in my boat, and that is it. And they're like, that's half, and half is better than nothing. And so, they're kind of like, if I'm by myself and I'm just trying to feed myself and my family, if I can take one person 7 days a week instead of two people 5 days a week, they're pretty much ready to make that happen.
Yeah. And Kins had mentioned the shuttle drivers and those people, the people who make lunch and whatnot, that's also a factor, right? I mean,
everybody.
It's
It has to be. It has to be literally, every single aspect. You cannot interact with people, and it's almost like the thing. I think what we were talking about. We were talking about the whitewater trip that wants to socially distance. So the family of 4 that already lives together, so they've already shared all the infection with each other, so they can come and they can be in a very large boat in the front of the boat, the 4 of them, at least 6 feet away from the guide, and they have to stay together the whole time. And then of course at camp, everything's got to be spread out. So no longer can you can no longer camp on small camps. Everybody needs to be in the really big camps because there needs to be all this extra space.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from the rafting community, that they're like, a lot of their trips are 24 people, and so they're looking at that same concept as the guide taking 1 angler in the drift boat. Is the 24-person trip that used to be done with 6 guides now becomes a 12-person trip, but it's really still done with 6 guides because they need to spend all that, they need to spread all that out. But same concept is like thinking about the fact that, hey, I'm going to get half, and half is better than 0.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of it where we're already hearing from outfitters that are like, it's already too far gone. I'm just going to throw the towel in now, and I'm going to take that gamble. So, they're shutting their whole operation down. And as we were talking about the other day, they risk losing their entire guide community, more than likely, unless they have just, guides that are, live in that area and have lived there forever and have some other means of work that they can do. They may be there that next year, or they may be, hey, I've pushed 2021 to be my biggest season ever, and now I've got, complete rookies running my operation. And so, there's that.
Yeah,
that
I mean, Montana is where most, like Ken said, most guides are independent contractors. It's not like that in every state.
Yeah.
So people, many guides, I mean, the guides that work with us, they're also fishing for 2 or 3 other outfitters. So
right.
I don't know how that will shake out either, right? So, I mean, think about, they could work for 3 or 4 different outfitters in 1 week, and right now it might be 1 if they're lucky.
Right. Because that's another element that could possibly come to where there can't be any cross-pollination between groups. Like, you have to stay, that's it. This is your group. You only get what you get from this group. And that's the thing. It's just the whole thing of the, staying with that family unit, and, expecting people to quarantine for 14 days before they do anything is like, that's kind of
dem the rules.
That's gonna be an interesting one.
Yeah, and Shook's gonna put the link up in the chat so people could actually go to Foam, the website, and
perfect.
Yeah, thank you, sis. And look at requirements and the guidelines here in Montana.
Right. And I do want to remind folks, if you have any questions, please fire them off. We are going to start kind of wrapping things up here shortly. So if you have some questions, please fire them off to us, and let us know what we can help you out with.
One of the things that I wanted to point out, and when we started building this and doing this, Dan had said to me he wanted a mental health aspect to be highlighted on the website.
Right.
So I worked with a friend here in Bozeman who's the regional director of the Western Montana Health Center. He's a mental health professional, and he helped the mental health center along with Bozeman Deaconess and the local center have put together a new clinic. Right now, it's during the day, they're working to staff it 24/7. Or if you just need some help. I mean, a lot of people are feeling off. Some of these feelings are new to them. They don't really understand maybe what depression or anxiety should feel like. And scroll down, Shishka, you'll be able to see a couple of different items here. So Thrive is online. It's all videos and whatnot. If you just need to kind of have someone talk at you about maybe what you're feeling, this is all online. 211 will take you right to the help center in Bozeman. And that is really for someone who's in crisis. If you feel as though you just need to talk to somebody right now, or if you have someone in your family you feel needs some help, 211. The Western Montana Health Center, like I said, they started this behavioral health urgent care clinic, the BHUCC. You can walk up. It's not necessarily suggested that you do that right now, but if you call that 406-556-6500 number, you will get a human being, and they will be able to help you with whatever your issue might be. If you're insured, you'll work with your insurance company. Really important if you're not insured, because I'm going to hazard a guess that most guides are not insured. So if you need this kind of help, you could still call them regardless of where you are in the state. Even though it's based here in Bozeman, call that number, the 556-6500 number, and they can help you throughout the state. Maybe find you a mental health provider in your town or your county. But if you are uninsured, they have a sliding scale based on what you're making right now, which is pretty
zero.
So there could be, you could pay as little as $5 to get help. And I think that's pennies to help, because I guarantee it's not just us and independent contractors and those of us who are watching and on this call that are feeling uneasy, right?
Yeah, and that actually just kind of goes right back to what we were kind of talking about, is that it is just dealing with all of this is so taxing mentally, where, you know, we have people that, you know, that we work with and that are, you know, still picking up some product because, you know, they've already paid for it. They already, you know, they're like, I don't know if I'll use it, but I'm going to come by and get it. And some of them are outfitters and friends of ours we've known for a long time. And one buddy of mine, he was just kind of like, you know, he was traveling through and picking some stuff up, and he's like, today was not a good day. He's like, I lost it. And he's like, I had to just stop and just put it down and go away, go outside, you know, go walk with a dog or do whatever, you know. And it's like one of those things is like, you know, that's happening everywhere. Like everybody's having those days, you know, no matter what you're in, you know, no matter what part of this you're in, you know, everybody's having those days. And
and really, I mean, a lot of folks aren't even thinking about mental health. They're thinking about their bank accounts and their bills and whatnot. But
right,
you know, if you feel that little anxious thing, don't be ashamed to pick up the phone and call one of these numbers to get some help, even if it is, you know, looking at Thrive and getting videos. But that's what they're here for, and they're building this system. And speaking with my friend, the mental health professional, he says, you know what, right now is the time to start working on this, because in about a month or 2 months, it's going to get worse. The anxiety and the depression, everything is just going to get worse. So now's the time to kind of think about yourself and your family. And if you feel as though someone or yourself needs this kind of assistance, it is there. It is there to use. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's very key to even just to have other people to talk with.
Huge.
You know, I mean, it's like, you know, in our house, there's 4 of us here, and they're all working from home, and, you know, we're sharing bandwidth as much as we can. And, you know, but some folks, you know, they're alone. And so then it's like, you know, do you see your neighbor, you know, across the way, and, you know,
I live out on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I get to see nobody. So
the UPS driver that delivers packages is now your
buddy,
your personal engagement, you know. But yeah. So yeah, I think that there's definitely there's so many elements to this that haven't really come to light yet. And everybody's dealing with it in, you know, different situations for sure. So I don't know if we have any other comments. Is there anything else that you ladies would like to share with folks before we start kind of wrapping things up?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
Fire
had
away.
talked about how other states, we've had a few other, whether it be guides or kind of similar organizations reach out. And so as far as, other states, I'm speaking on behalf of Molly and I, but we would
Right.
love to help anyone
Yeah.
outside of Montana. If you're looking to do something like this, or you need assistance, I have experience in Washington State. It's very similar to Montana as far
Right.
as
Have you actually had any contact with guides in Washington State as far as
yeah.
part of my thought here is just that there's just they're not organized. It's like it's like there's got to be somebody to kind of take the reins on it,
Right.
and and I think that's part of the element that is kind of missing in other states. And I know that you guys kind of Montana is unique in itself, that is there's definitely such a large number of folks that kind of brought that about for the guiding industry, and there are very many guiding outfits in Oregon, Washington, California, Colorado as well, that we deal with a lot. And I would imagine that they're all kind of dealing with the same issues, but trying to figure out where that point is. And then
Definitely
also,
calls from Alaska and Wyoming saying, "Hey, what's our
exactly. Alaska and Wyoming, you'd think that they'd be organized, but that's
no.
definitely
I think too, it's
but yeah, it's like every guiding state, kind of needs that bond, and I guess it really just takes people in each state to kind of reach out and find out. I know you guys said how you basically kind of saw somebody worked for Tester's office, I think it was, and and then you gleamed onto them and you get into the main vein, and that's key. You kind of have to have that whole approach. And I think Alaska and Wyoming are they're so remotely different as well, but there's got to be somebody that just there's got to be that outfitter that takes the governor's buddy on the river every time, and it has to basically kind of push it together. But
we definitely
and
are
then
unique.
and we did talk about how how this started. You were thinking it was going to be a fund, and then now it's more of a support. But I can't really see that it's still not going to need to be a fund. I think
that's the goal.
That is.
There's still going to need to be some sort of additional assistance that different guiding outfits can tap into, because it's that salvage the season
goal.
where you can salvage everything. Everybody's trying to salvage what they can, and
so hopefully until we're back up and running fully. I saw Dan actually came on, and is that during this downtime is actually work on all the red tape, the tape to actually get something like this off the ground. And but that is the goal, because we've had companies and organizations already come and say, we'd love to give you some money for this, down the road, to build a fund, whether it be a medical emergency, or we heard of a house fire that a guide lost everything, or the fish kill that we had a few years ago in the Yellowstone.
Right.
So yes, we want to be very thoughtful and deliberate in creating something like that, and making sure it's done. And we have a wonderful group of supporters on the website, of outfitters and guides throughout the state, who can help us identify who these funds would go to. So there's but that is
and like you've done a lot of the groundwork now, and so now it's like what is going to be that piece that it really needs to plug into. and I think really, just for other states is, this is the time, is to start wading through all that red tape, is reaching out to your local and state government and seeing what you can find out, find out who is the person you should be talking to in the tourism industry in your state, because every state has a state tourism person that is, their sole job is to bring more people in to that state to recreate, especially all of the states that we're primarily talking about. So, those people have a vested interest in everybody in this community, surviving, and that's the product that they promote. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of networking that can continue to happen before we actually
Endless.
see this open. And
Yeah.
we'll be watching Montana for the 27th.
No pressure.
see how your 14 days
God.
14 days goes. Yeah, I haven't heard anything that close for Oregon. I think we're about a month away from that. At
Oh,
best
wow.
case, as far as
You have a lot more
far as
people
we
in
can
your
tell.
state than we do.
Right.
So I do
true.
have a question for you.
Oh, sure.
Oh, fire away.
So there was a question on the comments if there is a national association that represents guides anywhere.
Not
So,
yet.
Kind of.
Yeah.
There's definitely, like American Outdoors is actually, they're trying to put their foot in there, but the problem is that yes, they're dealing with that at the national level, and it's not like, they help the just the communications. It helps kind of get you that information, but it doesn't seem like, from what I've seen, is it's not like they're really going to have programs of their own. They're basically just kind of helping that information process, but definitely a resource for somebody who's looking to do something more localized in their state. And I think almost every state that has a lot of guiding and tourism has some sort of guide organization that, you can start there and then kind of branch it out. And other states may need to do exactly what you guys did. You may need to form your own state, organization to try and make it work. And, as far as I think that's the only one that I really know of that probably, tackles guide and outfitter issues at a national level that are actually, they're going to Washington, and they're definitely presenting, and, and they know exactly who to target for certain things.
Yeah.
But
AFTA too is a good, governing body to collect information from, down to the state level, as well.
Who was that, Kins?
right.
AFTA.
Oh,
I mean, to a degree.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing
Right.
like, a governing body
Yeah.
for guides in
Right.
the country.
Yeah, and AFTA is exactly what Derek just said as well.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's not necessarily entirely their role, but they definitely are a great resource to help you connect with any other states, to get you in touch with that governing body from your state.
Right.
Yeah.
That might be, 3 or 4 cups of coffee for that day. Work your way through it.
Oh, I love it. And just lastly, on the whole national note, there is a great Save the Season fund for guides. I'm sure most guides have heard of it now.
Right.
I haven't checked in on it, how funds are going.
Let's look.
To raise funds, but that's also an avenue worth exploring right now if you're in need of assistance at the moment, if your unemployment doesn't quite come through yet, or
Doesn't kick through.
that's an option to explore for you. I'm not sure how it works, but
Gotcha.
Yeah, it is national, so
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Is
there's
that the
definitely going to
site?
be.
Yes. Yeah. Something to explore.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of that is, save the season, save your local gear shop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's one of these things that in our industry and in this time of the place that we're in, is that it is very important to, you know, shop small, shop local, and support local. And you know, I think that there's been a lot of things that have popped through on the social feeds of, you know, really that whole thing of just postpone your trip, don't cancel your trip, keep it going, and you know, make it so that we really load up that second half of the season as much as we can.
When this all started, I called the people who had booked trips in May and June. I said, here's the situation. We can either give you a refund or we can just, you know, keep it. He's like, just keep it and I'll either reschedule this year or I'll come back next year. So
right.
That's generally what's
those are ideal customers to have.
They really are.
We have some good ones out in Montana.
Certainly do.
Yes, sirree. Yes,
Yeah.
sirree.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. Thank you both very much. And
Thank you.
Hopefully this was a good platform that we got some information out there for folks. And, you know, who knows, as this develops throughout the next few weeks or months, we might need to have you back to give us an update.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
Yes. We'll have all the new guidelines dialed out by then.
An update from
one
the front
person, one person per vehicle to the river.
Well, you know, I mean, you should say that. Literally, there was the story this morning was, what are they going to do about Yellowstone? I mean, that's huge where I am. I mean, that we guide in Yellowstone, and opening the park. Oh my gosh, I can't. Yeah,
exactly.
The millions of visitors it gets monthly. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just it is such a multi-level tangled web that you know, there's just, it looks like Derek is going to be trying to get through Montana whenever they allow that. So
well, welcome, Derek.
He'll let us know when he's going into his 14-day quarantine so he can go to Montana to go fishing.
Yeah.
Oh, Derek.
We'll have that. That'll be a new video log, as you can mark. Day 1, I'm in my 14-day quarantine. I'm staying in my house. I've got food for 15 days, so I have food for my 1 day of travel. And then I will actually buy everything I need when I get to Montana, infuse the economy as much as I can.
Like it. He's going to stop at every shop and buy a couple flies. Right, Derek?
That's right. Yeah. Buy a couple flies at every place that you stop along the way. Exactly.
Yep.
All righty. Well, thank you very much once again. And
thank you.
Exactly.
We will look forward to seeing how things all shake out. It is all unknown at this point.
Sounds
Good
great.
luck, and we'll talk to you later.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.